Hello, time for a quick review of the year 2024. It's New Year's Day today, cloudy and raining here in jolly old Blighty, well in my part, and most of the rest of it as well. So I thought I'd take a bit of a look at the year behind and the year ahead, although whether I have anything rational to say, I'll leave that to you to decide. I don't have a clear view of it all, because I think so much has been happening that I've forgotten most of it. As we do, we're all programmed to forget the unimportant, right? We're made to think it's unimportant by new stories every day, new distractions all the time for us. And so we automatically start to classify it all as unimportant, even the important stuff. And certainly I've forgotten lots. And also I want to take a kind of a conspiracy theory look at the year ahead, because those are the main interesting things that might happen after all. So let's see. Trump, President-elect. I've noticed actually on Twitter, I know Elon Musk insists on calling it X, but you know what I mean. I've noticed QAnon type tweets starting to appear again. I mean, obviously that was a Trump conspiracy. I think it was done by him or by his campaign, let's say. And anyway, yeah, my view. None of it happened, of course. None of it came true. Well, unless you count Mr. Epstein. At least one was eliminated. Yeah, and Elon Musk is being painted as like our hero in the social media, particularly, of course, his own Twitter. But I have to say, he's working on AI. He's working on Neuralink. I mean, his view is that if we are to survive AI, we should merge with it. Right, so he wants us all basically to be assimilated by the Borg. That doesn't make him a goodie in my eyes, but we can't avoid AI. It's an issue that if we don't develop it, somebody else will, and that somebody else will probably be China, and we know what they're like. But the thing is, our leadership are every bit as evil, in my view. They just mask it behind a free market sort of face. So if you accept the Neuralink, you're probably accepting the mark of the beast as forecast in the Bible, right? Because the Neuralink, or whatever future tech comes from it, will be able to write to your brain as well as read from it. It has to be able to work. So it will be able to control your moods and your feelings, basically. There are scientific papers showing that these things can be done. And so your feelings can be manipulated so that certain types of behaviours feel good and right to you, and other types of behaviours don't. So that you'll be subtly manipulated, and even strongly manipulated, to behave in ways that somebody else wants. That's the big danger of it, really. One of the big materialist danger. Okay. The spiritual one is that you'll be condemned to hell, right? Okay, if you believe that, or even if you don't believe it, actually. Yeah. But there are a number of prophecies that I've seen about the year ahead. That Trump is going to be a wartime president. We know from the war in Ukraine that the West has been relentlessly prodding Russia. Clearly our leaders want a war with them. But any major war with Russia is going to eliminate probably the peoples of Europe and North America more than any others, and Russia. Okay, so the pale faces of the world will suffer a very drastic population decline. Of course, we, from those countries, are probably the most difficult for the elite to control. It takes the most effort to keep us under control. We have traditions of some degree of freedom of speech and of human rights and trade unions and things of that sort that make life difficult for an elite that really just wants total control. So it would be logical, if such people are running the world, that it might be sensible for them to reduce the population of those parts of the world that cause them the most hassle. And they also want to reduce population. They're blaming the environmental crisis, and I believe there is an environmental crisis, but it needs to be dealt with in a humane way. They're doing things like that with the introduction of electric vehicles and cutting our food supplies and taxes and stuff, but I think some people want to move faster. And many people think that 2025 is going to be one of those times. There are a number of actual prophecies from saints and Christian prophets and the like about a war. There's one about the areas north of the Danube being devastated, that it will happen very soon, if not right away, after a peace treaty is agreed, possibly after the Pope has visited Moscow, during a cold snap, which I presume will be in Europe, since that will be where it's likely to happen, and in the Middle East, I suppose it's probably going to be happening there. There's a saint, I forget his name, Training, something like that, an Orthodox one, who says that it will start from Turkey attacking Greece after Erdogan is no longer the leader. But I would think Russia would have to be involved as well, because that prophecy says that all the Western countries that join that war, obviously Britain, France, Italy, probably Germany, maybe Poland, all those countries will be lost. Possibly eliminated from the world, right? And in fact, the apparition of the Virgin Mary at Fatima, with 60,000 plus witnesses, said that some nations would be lost altogether if people don't change their ways. They're supposed to pray for peace, to go to confession because it's a Catholic apparition, and take the Eucharist, say the Rosary daily. If enough people don't do that, the world won't change enough to prevent these things. We'll see. The apparition did accurately predict the imminent end of World War One, and that there would be another war. And as I say, there were upwards of 60,000 witnesses. So, well, and the West, of course, has been, as I say, endlessly prodding Russia. There's been escalation after escalation after escalation. No, we won't allow the jets to be used. Well, all right, we'll allow the jets to be used. No, we won't send troops in. Well, all right, we'll send in some trainers and yeah. We won't allow the long-range missiles to be used. Oh, well, let's allow it now. You know? Russia has been restrained. We shall see. Other predictions? Economic crisis, crash, depression. You can see it building up, because as debt builds up, the chance of a crash and a crisis increases. It's probably, whether it'll be this year or whenever, who knows, but it's looking scary on that front. A new pandemic maybe to help reduce the population instead. What about bird flu? There's talk about it. There's even scientific experiments being done to make it spread to humans, to test it so they can produce vaccines, they say. We all know how many of these pandemics escape from labs somehow. Another thing that might happen is an alien invasion. Lots of conspiracy theorists think that there's going to be an alien invasion, and these drones that are being seen over New Jersey and places like that, and even elsewhere now, are something to do with it. Although a lot of the video and stuff that I've seen is just a camera pointing at something way out of focus. And you get a big fuzzy blob when you do that. If you point like a telescope at a star and then put it out of focus, what you get is a big fuzzy blob. Right. People think that you're supposed to point it at it and then turn the focus so that it gets as big as possible. That's not correct. That's the opposite of what's correct. You're supposed to make it as small as possible so it's sharp. But of course people don't know what they're doing. Right? Yeah, so when you see these fuzzy blob type things, I think that's just rubbish, okay? Drones with lights, as I've said in my previous video, military or private companies doing this somehow. Anyway. So, you know, I tend to take a Catholic view of these things, and the Catholics think, because I'm a Catholic, I have a science background, but to me science indicates that there has to be a God. Okay, and I've spoken about this in other videos. I've videos about the evidence, the scientific evidence, and I have experiences in my own life as well. So I treat them as a Catholic treats them, which regards them as demonic influences, not alien. There is good scientific evidence for thinking that there are no aliens as such in our universe. Well, certainly in our observable universe, because the odds are too small. Way too small. Not even a little bit too small. A lot too small. They may be there anyway, for other reasons. Maybe God put them there, right? But strictly from the science, there's no chance. So yeah, watch out for the Neuralink and the other things, which I think are harmful. And intended to be. Now you might think this is just superstitious nonsense. What's all this? The apparition of Mary at Fatima and Guadalupe and Lourdes and on and on. But these things have physical evidence. I mean, at Lourdes, there are well-attested healings, attested by doctors, serious healings as well, not just little ones. When you think about it, okay, worldwide and throughout history, there have been hundreds of millions of reports of supernatural occurrences. Right. So many, in fact, that every one of you watching this video has either had a supernatural or strange experience of some sort, or knows someone who has. Now, are your friends and family liars or deluded? All of them? Really? Now, to scientifically examine this kind of stuff, it's no good going in with preconceived notions that such things are impossible, because you'll get stupid results, like those idiots who examined the Shroud of Turin back in the 80s and decided it was made in 1340 something, despite lots of evidence that it existed before then. Okay, they went in with preconceived notions. They didn't do their science properly, actually. It's now known that they took a sample of cloth from a part that had been repaired in the Middle Ages. Absolute fools. Anyway, and arrogant with it. There have been plenty of scientific studies on that since, and there are books about it. West has done one. There's another one by Lavoie. I've got it on the shelf there. With lots of details of the science now on that. And it's pretty convincing, I have to say. So what are we to make if you look at these reports? As I say, there are hundreds of millions of them, and people have experiences. I have experiences. My parents have experiences. My grandmother did. It can't all be nonsense. That's ridiculous. Now, a lot of scientist types, the loudmouth atheists, they take the view, or they give the impression that if you don't agree with them, you must be stupid. But I think they're the stupid ones. Because they just have this preconceived idea that it can't happen, and therefore it must be something else, and they go against the odds, like with the odds of life in the universe. We know the odds are trillions and trillions and trillions to one against, yet here we are. Nobody's going to play that lottery, you know. You're not dumb if you believe some of these things are true. Some are obviously nonsense. People are deluded and stupid. And some are liars and trying to make money, especially online. Okay. But if you investigate it with a closed mind, or with your mind already made up, you're not investigating it. But you should look for loopholes, of course. But you've got to be honest, basically. And I'm afraid the loudmouth atheists that get a platform in the media are not being honest with themselves, in my view. Some of them, they really believe it, but they're mad at best. Okay, I mean, okay, I've said all of you will have had an experience or know someone who has. Why don't you write it in the comments? I'd be really interested to see. Okay. Also, as regards praying for peace, that there's some famous person, maybe it was G.K. Chesterton, said that when you start praying, coincidences seem to happen more. This is what the Catholics call the grace of God, really. And scientists call coincidence. Atheist scientists call coincidence. We can't test it because it does fit within the laws of chance. But subjectively, you kind of know. If you've had an issue for years and years, and then you pray, and like a couple of weeks later it fades away, or something happens. Yeah, could be coincidence, couldn't it? It could. But is it? I don't know. I'm trying to remember ones of my own to tell you. I've had dreams about the future which are accurate. I mean, really accurate. The future prophecies are always not necessarily accurate because it's subject to free will. And if people change their minds and change their ways, the future changes. It's not fixed, none of it. Probably the biblical prophecies have to come true if that's literally the word of God, and God presumably can make prophecies that actually are fixed. But presumably other people's are not. And the timing certainly changes, even if the events happen in some way or other. That's my view of it. Write yours in the comments. Write your comments on what do you think about these? What's going to happen this year? And what weird experiences have you had that tell us that reality isn't all it seems? Bye for now.